Donald Trump has announced tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada due to start tomorrow, and others due to start in 3 weeks' time. He has announced tariffs on goods imported from China. He has said that he's very unhappy with the trade imbalance between the USA and the EU, and is threatening sanctions against goods from the EU. He says that Keir Starmer is a nice guy, and they've been having some lovely chats, so he thinks they can work out a deal which would avoid Trump's. You see, I'm getting Trump and tariff mixed up. They're becoming synonymous in my aging brain. Would avoid the need for tariffs against goods produced in the UK. Global strategist Dr. Michael Power joins us now. Michael, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
We don't know exactly where this is going, Michael. We don't know what level the tit-for-tat is going to get to. Canada has already imposed tariffs on goods, and there's an enormous anti-American sentiment, it seems, in at least parts of Canada. Some of the provinces are not allowing American products to be sold in the stores in that province. I mean, do you have any sense of what the next weeks and months might look like?
None whatsoever, other than to be fairly sure that anything I say is probably going to be contradicted within a couple of days. But I will try and help you make head or tail of what's going on.
Please, over to you. What is going on?
Sorry. What is going on? I think essentially Donald Trump is trying to stamp his authority on the American system. Whether he's doing that constitutionally or otherwise is not clear, but he needs to, in his mind, make a big splash in his opening few days of being president to signify that he's there. I think this is going to cause all sorts of issues internationally, which I'm not sure he's thought through, but then that's been pretty much the way that he's operated in previous instances. He doesn't think things through. And if truth be told, he doesn't really understand what the consequences of his actions are, but they play well in the gallery, so he does them.
What are the potential consequences? I mean, if agreements are not reached, China for the moment is holding fire and is talking about coming to some agreement on the exchange of goods. But if he keeps up the tariffs on Mexico and Canada, we are waiting for the Mexican response either later today or tomorrow, and he does become emboldened by the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, goes for China, goes for the EU. What are the potential consequences of that?
I think we're staring down the barrel of a trade war, and it's a trade war that doesn't just involve, as it did the last time round, Donald Trump and their adversaries, their commercial adversaries in the form of China. It involves Donald Trump and the closest allies of the United States. So no one is sacred this time round. And I think that the consequences are going to be quite serious for the United States. I think their standing in the world is going to be severely impacted. I think inflation is going to find its way back into the American system, which, if one looks back at the election, the reason why Donald Trump probably got elected more than any other was that he wasn't around when inflation was. And so he could blame the arrival of inflation in the United States on Biden and his crew and get elected in his place. I think that's going to then backfire on him, because I think it's hard to imagine how inflation isn't going to creep back into the system in the United States. I mean, the talk is that pretty much every car sold in the United States has now got to go up by $3,000. That's not a small number.
And for the moment, Donald Trump is saying it's worth it. The pain is worth it because the eventual gain will make the current pain seem negligible. Whether that is true, I don't know. I
just don't think that people are going to start sending their money to invest in the United States. Partly because, leaving aside the sort of rather strange operating environment that they would find themselves in, labor costs in the United States are so much higher than they are elsewhere in the world. So why on earth would you locate a factory in the United States when the labor costs were so high? Even with accounting for the extra money that's going to have to be paid out in tariffs now, it doesn't begin to close the margin. I mean, for instance, broadly speaking, the U.S. labor costs are still 6 times those of China and 33 times those of India. This is not something that is solved by tariffs.
Is anything solved by tariffs?
Look, occasionally it can be, but I'm not on the side of tariffs. I'm just saying that occasionally tariffs can, I'm using the word very advisedly, work. But generally, no. Issues like this are not solved by tariffs. They were solved by negotiations. Negotiations, by the way, which Donald Trump himself was involved in when he, as it were, re-signed the NAFTA agreement in 2020. And it's that agreement he's now tearing up again. So, the question now arises, is Donald Trump's word worth anything? And, based on the evidence we have, probably not.
If this continues, if somebody doesn't talk sense into Donald Trump's ear, I don't know who has the ear of the president, who might say, "Whoa, hold on a little bit, let's cool things down and let's start having some talks out of the realm of Truth Social and the media." But if that doesn't happen, if the tariff impositions turn into a reasonably widespread trade war and that continues for some time, then nobody's exempt from the negative implications.
I think that we always have to assume that that some of the other actors in the world are not going to be clever in their response. I would not think that the Chinese are going to overtly try and cause major problems here. China's talking about cutting its residual tariffs on pretty much every emerging market good that finds its way to China. Now, that's basically dealing with fire with a big bucket of water. And I think that what's going to happen, and Donald Trump is not going to like this, is that he's going to hasten what I call the reorientation of the world, and the pun is intended, away from it being centered on the United States, which it still is financially, but in terms of trade, it's massively shifting to Asia, and in particular, obviously, China. And I think this tariff story, which is essentially a trade story, is going to hasten that process. And so he's not only going to not win, he's going to lose, as he would say, bigly.
Dr. Michael Power, global strategist, thank you very, very much for helping us understand a little better.